Los Angeles, 1947, a city of dreams and darkness, where the glamour of Hollywood meets the shadows of crime. And in the midst of it all, a young woman's life was brutally cut short. Elizabeth Short, the Black Dahlia, a name that would become synonymous with terror and intrigue. Elizabeth Short was born on July 29, 1924, in Boston, Massachusetts, to Cleo and Phoebe Short. She was the third of 5 daughters. Her father, a Navy sailor, lost his savings in the 1929 stock market crash. In 1930, he abandoned his car on the Charlestown Bridge, and it was assumed he had taken his own life. The Short family settled in Medford, Massachusetts. In late 1942, Elizabeth Short's life took a surprising turn when her mother received a letter from her father, Cleo Short, who was presumed dead. The letter revealed that he was alive and had started a new life in California. Elizabeth, who was 18 at the time, decided to join her father in Vallejo, California, and start a new life. However, the reunion was short-lived, and arguments between Elizabeth and her father led to her moving out of his house in January 1943. She took a job at Camp Cook's Base Exchange and briefly lived with a sergeant who abused her. She left in 1943, moved to Santa Barbara, and was arrested for underage drinking. Instead of returning to Massachusetts as ordered, she went to Florida. While living in Florida, Elizabeth Short met Major Matthew Michael Gordon Jr., a decorated officer in the Army Air Force's 2nd Air Commando Group. The two began a romantic relationship, and Gordon proposed to Short while he was recovering from injuries sustained in a plane crash in India. Short accepted his proposal, but their plans for a future together were tragically cut short when Gordon died in another plane crash on August 10, 1945. This devastating loss had a profound impact on Short's life. In July 1946, Elizabeth Short relocated to Los Angeles to visit Joseph Gordon Fickling, a lieutenant in the Army Air Force whom she had met in Florida. Fickling was stationed at the Naval Reserve Air Base in Long Beach, and Short's visit marked the beginning of her 6-month stay in Southern California. During this time, she settled into a routine, working as a waitress and renting a room behind the Florentine Gardens nightclub on Hollywood Boulevard. Although she had no formal acting credits, Short nurtured aspirations of becoming a film star, and her proximity to the Hollywood film industry likely fueled her ambitions. On January 9, 1947, Elizabeth Short returned to Los Angeles after a brief trip to San Diego with Robert Red Manley, a married salesman she had been dating. Manley dropped Short off at the Biltmore Hotel in downtown Los Angeles, where she intended to meet one of her sisters, who was visiting from Boston later that afternoon. Hotel staff recalled seeing Short using the lobby telephone, presumably to make arrangements with her sister or another acquaintance. Shortly thereafter, patrons of the Crown Grill Cocktail Lounge, located approximately 600 meters away from the Biltmore on South Olive Street, reported seeing Short. On January 15, 1947, Elizabeth Short's mutilated body was found in a vacant lot in Hyde Park, Los Angeles. Her body was naked and severed into 2 pieces, severely mutilated, cut in half at the waist, and drained of blood, leaving her skin deathly pale. The medical examiner estimated she had been dead for around 10 hours, placing her time of death on the evening of January 14 or early morning of January 15. The killer had apparently washed her body. Her face was disfigured with cuts from the corners of her mouth to her ears, creating a Glasgow smile. There were additional cuts on her thighs and breasts, with significant portions of flesh removed. The lower half of her body was positioned a foot away from the upper, with her intestines tucked under her buttocks. Her corpse was posed, with hands above her head, elbows bent, and legs spread apart. The investigation revealed further details about the violent and disturbing nature of Elizabeth Short's death. A chunk of flesh from her thigh, where she had a rose tattoo, was removed and inserted into her vagina. Her stomach contained human feces. Rope marks on her wrists, ankles, and neck indicated she had been restrained and subjected to prolonged torture. It is likely that she was alive when the killer began cutting her body in half. Journalist Aggie Underwood arrived at the crime scene and took photos of Elizabeth Short's body. Nearby, detectives found a heel print, tire tracks, and a cement sack with watery blood. The Los Angeles Examiner offered to pay Elizabeth Short's mother, Phoebe, to travel to Los Angeles to help with the investigation, but actually kept her away from police and other reporters to protect their exclusive story. The Examiner and other Hearst newspapers sensationalized the case, nicknaming Short the Black Dahlia and portraying her as an adventuress who frequented Hollywood Boulevard. Newspapers also described the murder as a sex fiend slaying. On January 21st, a person claiming to be Elizabeth Short's killer called the Los Angeles Examiner, congratulating the editor on their coverage and stating they would eventually turn themselves in. The caller also mentioned sending souvenirs of Short in the mail. 3 days later, a suspicious envelope was found, addressed to the Los Angeles Examiner, with cut and pasted words from newspaper clippings. The envelope contained Elizabeth Short's personal belongings, including her birth certificate, business cards, photos, and an address book with the name Mark Hansen on it. The items had been cleaned with gasoline, similar to Short's body, leading police to suspect that the envelope was sent by her killer. A possible suicide note was found on March 14th, near the ocean in Venice, claiming responsibility for the Black Dahlia murder. The note expressed the writer's inability to turn themselves in and apologized to someone named Mary. The note was found with a pile of men's clothing, but the owner's identity remained unknown. Mark Hansen, owner of an address book found in a packet with Elizabeth Short's belongings, became a suspect. He was a nightclub and theater owner who knew Short, and some sources suggested he confirmed the identity of some of her belongings. Short's friend Ann Toth told investigators that Short had rejected Hansen's advances, potentially providing a motive for the crime. However, Hansen was cleared of suspicion. The LAPD also investigated over 150 other men, including Robert Manley, who was one of the last people to see Short alive, but he passed multiple polygraph tests and was cleared. The Los Angeles Examiner received 2 more letters claiming to be from the Black Dahlia killer. The first letter stated the killer would turn themselves in on January 29th, but they didn't show up. Instead, a second letter arrived, claiming the killer had changed their mind, feeling they wouldn't receive a fair deal and justifying the murder. The Herald Express received letters from a person claiming to be the Black Dahlia killer, made with cut and pasted clippings. One letter stated they would surrender if they received a 10-year sentence and warned against trying to find them. By spring 1947, Elizabeth Short's murder had gone cold. Lead detective Finis Brown blamed the press for compromising the investigation. In 1949, a grand jury investigated the LAPD's homicide unit for failing to solve several murders, including Short's. Further investigation into Short's past yielded no new leads or useful information. The Black Dahlia case has attracted over 560 confessions, many deemed false. Sergeant John P. St. John noted that numerous people have tried to implicate a relative as the killer. George Hoddle, a surgeon, was accused by his son Steve of killing Elizabeth Short. George had a history of suspicious behavior, including fleeing the country and being accused of raping his daughter. A 1949 grand jury report revealed a wiretap conversation where George seemed to implicate himself in the Black Dahlia murder. The Black Dahlia case may be linked to the Cleveland Torso murders, with Jack Anderson Wilson emerging as a suspect in 1980. Wilson died in 1982 before he could be arrested, and some believe Elliot Ness knew the killer's identity. Some authors suggest a link between the Black Dahlia and the 1946 murder of 6-year-old Suzanne Degnan in Chicago, citing similarities in handwriting between the Degnan ransom note and the Black Dahlia Avenger letters. The cases share unusual writing styles and a similarly formed letter P. Elizabeth Short is buried at Mountain View Cemetery in Oakland. Her mother, Phoebe, lived nearby until the 1970s, then returned east, dying in 1992. The case prompted California to establish the first U.S. sex offender registry in 1947. The Black Dahlia case remains unsolved, with many theories but no convictions. It continues to inspire true crime stories, novels, and films, captivating audiences with its enduring mystery.